Planet Earth, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Once again, my name is Joe Nice. Today is December 7th, 2020. December the 7th, 2020, December 7, 2020. Once again, continuing the live and direct chat series on a day-to-day basis as much as humanly possible because no one's working now. Nothing much else to do. There's only so many books I can read, so I want to try to keep the conversations moving. Eventually, I'm going to migrate these conversations on a day-to-day basis over to my YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm going to slowly start to build that out as we speak. The YouTube address is JOENICE Joe Nice DJ. There's a couple of playlists already, and a couple of the chats that I've done here on this new platform have migrated over there, and a couple of the other conversations that I've been doing on a day-to-day basis have also been in separate playlists, along with all 26 episodes of the Joe and Cat Chat series. They are there also. So we're on it, we're in it, and we're in it to win it. Again, no stimulus package. Federal government isn't doing anything, no relief package, no nothing. Nancy Pelosi is now talking about potentially agreeing to this whole entire situation. That's my phone, it keeps ringing, it keeps dinging. And I'm going to turn on the do not disturb because we don't need to be disturbed by anybody right now. Again, no stimulus checks. There are already House Republicans that are saying that they're not going to approve the bipartisan agreed upon $908 billion. And bear in mind, months back, Nancy Pelosi called the $1.8 trillion stimulus package a half a loaf. That's what she said. Those were her exact words. She said, this is a half a loaf. Now, she's now looking to get an agreement upon half of a loaf. And now there are Senate Republicans saying, you know what? We're not even going to give you the half of a loaf. Again, I'm going to keep talking about this until, and I don't even want to be blue in the face because I'm already dark enough as it is, and I like how I look, so I'm not going to go blue. But my point is this. We need a workers' strike. We need to shut this country down. We need to shut this entire country down. I said in my most previous video that if grocery store workers in California decided to say, you know what, we're not slicing deli meat, we're not picking produce, we're not stocking shelves, nope, sorry. This entire country would shut down. This entire country would shut down. If ranch workers in Texas said, you know what, yeah, we're not doing any of this. We're not herding cattle. We're not doing anything with chickens. Nothing, nowhere. This entire country, once again, we could shut down. And the government would have to listen to the people. And I specifically picked out California and Texas because California has the 5th largest economy in the world. California has a bigger economy than India. And in India right now, 250 million people are on strike. Various labor unions said, you know what, yeah, we're on strike. The farmers joined in a few days later and said, you know what, yeah, we're shutting this down. And guess what? Y'all want some curry? Y'all want roti? Y'all want chana masala? Y'all want vindaloo? Let's talk about it. Let's fix this government. Let's fix it. We want our rights. You don't give us our rights, no one's eating. No one's eating except us. That's what's happening right now. And this type of solidarity, intra-industry and inter-industry solidarity, is exactly what America needs right now. America needs to shut this entire country down completely. And don't reopen it until every single item on a list of demands is met. All right? If y'all cats want some demands, you know what? Before I even go into the demands, let me go into some people on the chat here because I'm a man of the people. Miles Ahead said California is locked the fuck down. I know. It's locked down. Not reopening anytime soon, unfortunately. And bear in mind, California is locked down. 5th largest economy in the world is locked down. And y'all got a Democratic governor, Democratic senators. City of Los Angeles is entirely run by Democrats. You have homeless people under every overpass and every bridge and every intersection in Los Angeles. You got a Democratic state, entirely Democratic. And the Speaker of the House is based out of San Francisco. And that's California. You got a fifth largest economy in the world. Jackson saying, live in a rural Texas town, local shopkeeper is from northern India and was watching live on TV from his cell phone the other day and asked what he was watching and it blew me away. We need to take back the power. Damn right, Jackson. Damn fucking right. We need to take back this power. Power to the people. We are the people. We are the power. We are the power. We are the power. And again, California has the fifth largest economy in the world. You're from Texas. You're in Texas right now. And as we all know, everything's bigger in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. And I know Texas is a big-ass state. All right? Texas has the 10th largest economy in the world based upon gross domestic product. Texas has the 10th largest economy in the world. Texas has a bigger economy than Russia or Canada, our neighbors to the north, or South Korea, or Mexico, or Indonesia, or the Netherlands. Again, Miles, he's in California. California has a bigger economy than India, bigger economy than France. And again, France, if any of you have been watching France recently, 2 weeks ago, France had 150,000 people in the streets marching in the protests against the new security law. And they were back in the streets again this past week. And they had the entire city on fire. Gives new meaning to the term Paris is burning. If you know anything about that movie, Paris is Burning, it's about ballroom culture in New York City. And it's a fascinating movie. And if you ever watch that movie, there's a lot of what Madonna did in that movie. Not what Madonna did in that movie, but a lot of back 30 years ago when Voguing, when Madonna put that song Vogue came out. Watch that movie Paris is Burning. It's a documentary. It's an excellent watch. I fully endorse watching that. But yeah, Texas, 10th largest economy in the United States. Again, could you imagine if people from Walmart, a notorious corporation that busts unions, if Walmart and Target employees in Texas said, you know what? Yeah, you see all these diapers? Nah, we're not putting them in aisle J17. Sell your avocados? No, we're not putting them up. Mm-mm. Your little Starbucks coffees? No. Could you imagine if Starbucks employees just walked off the job? Starbucks is everywhere. Miles saying, bro, you should see Fairfax in LA right now. I know Fairfax. Yep. I'm not surprised. It's probably a new Skid Row. It's like a new old Skid Row. Yep, of course it is. Miles ahead saying, man, I just saw a video from a nightclub in Texas, completely wide open indoors, no mask or social distancing. Yep. And then people are thinking, okay, hey, yo, we're going to start playing festivals next summer. Nope. Let me go back up here. Jackson saying, it's rough over here. I've lost 3 jobs this year due to COVID and unemployment. Man, I'm sorry about that, Jackson. I feel for you, brother. And believe me, you're not the only one that's lost jobs. But I think the biggest loss, other than loss of life for the 280 or 290,000 people in the United States, many more people in the United States have lost their way of life. Their way of life. There's a French phrase that I enjoy using. I've used it in a couple of conversations. It's raison d'etre, the reason for being. There's a whole lot of people that have lost their reason for being as a result of this pandemic. What do you do now? Where do we go from here? It's like Axl Rose said in the classic song Sweet Child of Mine. At the break, he said, where do we go now? Where do we go now? Where do we go now? Jackson saying, it's a lot of people are risking everything besides being careless and scary. Yep, I agree. Miles ahead saying, if Target, Walmart, and Amazon employees all work together, that's the only way. I agree with you. I agree with you. But Target, Walmart, and Amazon employees kind of are all intra-industry. I think we need more than just service workers to get this done, although having service workers walk off the job would be an excellent, excellent beginning. Again, I think this needs to be, you see what these brothers and sisters in India are doing? This needs to be that kind of collective effort. It needs to be inter-industry, like a Walmart, Target, Amazon, but it also needs to be intra-industry. It needs to be auto mechanics at Jiffy Lube. Okay, it needs to be vehicle technicians at Mr. Tire. It needs to be grocery store workers. If you're a home builder, if you're a drywall specialist, if you're a plumber, don't go. Shut it down. Jackson saying land surveying is deemed essential and we work outside away from people, but I've still worked for small firms that have had to cut folks due to lack of work / project / income. Yeah, see? Land surveying. What's more physically distanced than being a land surveyor? Who's around you? I guarantee you're surveying more than 6 feet. No one around you. They're like, you know what? Let's not have any people work. Again, if you want a Green New Deal and you want to start building new roadways and high-speed rail, how are you going to do that without surveying the land? How are you going to do that without understanding the topography of the land that you're surveying and understanding what minerals are underneath the ground? What about lithochemical mapping? How are you going to do that without land surveying? I think that's essential, but I'm not the president of the world. I can't fix that problem. Miles Ahead saying America will never be united like that. I agree. We're not in the United States. We're in the divided states of America. We're in the divided corporate states of America. Miles Ahead saying by design. Again, Miles, you had a wonderful point. Let me go back to your point, sir. If Walmart, Target, and Amazon employees all work together, that's the only way. Again, there's a list of demands that must be met. These brothers and sisters in India have an entire list of demands. An entire list of demands. They're like, look, we're not going anywhere until we meet these demands. And it's cold in New Delhi, India right now, or Mumbai, India. It's cold. And people are sleeping inside of farm equipment, inside of tractors, and large farm equipment. And if you're not sleeping in it, you're sleeping under it. Then they got a bunch of cats out there making big bowls of curry and rice and basmati rice and anything else you want to eat to make sure everybody stays healthy. So you can survive this. So you can survive the sit out, survive the strike. I said the other day on Instagram, I'm like, you know what, man, we should be crowdfunding a strike. Because even with that, even with the dissolution of unions, it's expensive to not work. There's a cost to not working. And that cost is lost income. That cost is potentially lost health care. And you want to know why these cats in India can sit out right now? Because they don't have to worry about not having health care. Why? Because they actually have health care through their government. You want to know why these brothers and sisters can march up and down the Champs-Élysées in France every week like they've been doing, wearing yellow vests? Because guess what? If something happens to them, if one of these police officers shoots, if somebody gets a rubber bullet in the eye, guess what? They don't have to worry about it because the government will take care of it. Again, list of demands. We're going to go over this again because I want to make sure everybody understands what we're really dealing with and what we're talking about here. The list of demands, okay? And let me make sure I turn this on. I'm still getting used to using this platform. Everything's in reverse, so we go forward. All right. COVID-19 relief. And this includes a universal basic income, Medicare for all, hazard pay for frontline workers, eviction, rent, and parking moratoriums, and expanded SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for the unemployed and underemployed. Student loan cancellation. Again, student loan cancellation. The federal government, Joe Biden, can cancel student loan debt with a stroke of a pen. And again, I said this last week, Sharpie, not pencil, pen, not even pen, Sharpie, fine point. Talk to your lawyers, talk to your White House counsel, get this shit done. It's $1.9 trillion. The federal government is giving the banking industry $1 trillion a day. $1 trillion a day, lending them $1 trillion a day. They can figure out how to get 1.9 or maybe let's just round it up to $2 trillion to get rid of all student loan debt. Nationwide marijuana legalization. The National Basketball Association has gone ahead and said, hey, you know what, for this upcoming season, we are not testing. We are not testing for marijuana. Good. Demilitarized Green New Deal. You want jobs? Let's go for it. Let's have a Green New Deal. You want to defund the military and put more of that money back into the United States? Demilitarized Green New Deal. There's a lady who ran for state senate in Maine named Lisa Savage. She has the Demilitarized Green New Deal. Take a look at it. It's a wonderful project. Free the prisoners, including deactivating ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and bail for jail. Release all nonviolent drug offenders and housing for all. Find houses for everybody. There's more properties in the United States that go unoccupied than there are people who are living and sleeping on the streets. House the homeless, don't criminalize them. Excuse me. House the homeless, don't criminalize them. These are the list of demands. And I'm sure we could probably write another 5 or 6 other action items. But this is what we need immediately. And immediately is not soon enough. And notice the third word I had in that. It was relief, not stimulus, relief. Because again, there's nothing stimulating about making sure people stay in their homes and stay out of the way until this pandemic is under control. There's nothing there's nothing economically stimulating about making sure people pay their bills on time, or people have enough money to buy food, or people can pay their car payments or their mortgages or their cell phone bills. That's not stimulus, that's relief. These fucking idiots in Washington, D.C. want to make you think, oh, well, you know what? It's okay. We'll stimulate the economy by making sure we're able to make sure your basic needs are covered. Go on strike. Shut it down. Jackson saying 1 or 2 people cruise, masks in trucks, hand sanitizer all day. Hit the nail on the head there, Joe. Hard. I appreciate you, brother. Miles saying, did you see, LOL, the cost of the average hospitalization for COVID? It's $42,000. That's not surprising. Surprised it's only $42,000. Surprised it's only $42,000. And again, if you all want to understand how the healthcare system of the United States works, go through, watch the Joe and Kat Chat series. There's a couple of episodes that Kat and I did about the healthcare system of the United States. 2 complete episodes of the healthcare system of the United States. Episode 5, we talked about healthcare and COVID. And I think it was episode number 18 or 17 where we just did a recap of the healthcare system. If you all want to understand, let me give you the Cliff Notes version of the healthcare system of the United States. The healthcare system of the United States was based upon the Heritage Foundation's 3-legged stool model of healthcare. 3 legs of the stool are access to insurance, the individual mandate, and government subsidies. 3-legged stool model. If all 3 legs are not, if one of those 3 legs is not intact, the entire law collapses. This 3-legged stool model of healthcare is what Mitt Romney based his state health care plan, MassCare, on. Barack Obama decided to basically steal MassCare, call it Obamacare, and change the penalties for the individual mandate, and change the ages for pre-existing conditions, he changed the age of staying on your parents' insurance until 26. That's basically the same plan. So again, Barack Obama, a Democrat, gave everybody a Republican health care plan. So in 2017, Obamacare has been the law of the land, healthcare law of the land for the past 10 years, a little more than 10 years. March 2010 was the inception. So we're now a little more than 10 years into the healthcare plan. Republicans have tried to repeal this law over 70 times. It's been completely unsuccessful. 4 years ago, Trump said, you know what, I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare. But he knew he couldn't repeal it because he wouldn't get the legislative activity or energy to get the votes to do it. He knew he couldn't do it. Plus, it would take too long to try to run through the courts. But because Barack Obama gave us a three-legged stool model of healthcare, Trump knew that pulling one of the legs would basically render this law useless. Completely useless. Couldn't get rid of government subsidies. Couldn't get rid of access to insurance through the Medicaid expansion because that was done on a state-by-state basis. And you'd essentially have to sue each state to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you can't do it. So what did he do? He said, okay, individual mandate. We'll make the penalty $0. And y'all are like, well, Joe, what's the individual mandate? Individual mandate is a fancy rule stating that you, the private citizen, have to buy a privately owned product. And if you, the private citizen, don't buy that privately owned public product, we, the public, the government in this instance, will assess a penalty to you for not buying that privately owned product. And because health insurance is an intangible, hardly anybody screamed bloody murder about it. But imagine if that was your cell phone and someone said, hey, you know what, Joe, you got to buy a cell phone. We don't care what kind of cell phone it is, you got to buy a cell phone. And if you don't buy a cell phone from T-Mobile or Sprint or AT&T or Verizon, we, the government, are going to issue a penalty to you for not buying a phone from T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, or AT&T. Could you imagine what people will be like? What the hell? What you mean I got to buy a phone from one of these companies? What do you mean I have to buy a phone? What if I don't want a phone? I don't need a phone. Everyone's around me that I need to talk to. I don't need a phone. Could you imagine what if that was the case? People would be in the streets, but no, because it's healthcare and it's health insurance, no one said anything. No one said anything. So now, when Amy Coney Barrett gets into the Supreme Court, that is now why you have the Supreme Court case, California versus Texas, being litigated right now to challenge the constitutionality of the individual mandate. And when, in my opinion, I'm editorializing a little bit with this part here, but in my opinion, the Supreme Court comes back and says, you know what? Yeah, this whole individual mandate is unconstitutional. Yeah, the healthcare law is done. You think it's bad now with $42,000 hospital bills for COVID-19? What do you think these hospitals are going to charge now when they're already charging exorbitant fees for health insurance? Where you're paying for a bronze plan, $800 a month, and you've got a $4,500 deductible. And you got average hospital stays of $42,000 for COVID. One of these days, I don't know if either me and Kat will do this together or I might just do this separately. I'll go ahead and discuss Section 1881 of the Social Security Act, and I'll discuss Libby, Montana, and how everybody in Libby, Montana got Medicare because of an environmental hazard, and how, quite honestly, the rest of the United States should be getting Medicare because right now COVID-19 is an environmental hazard. If people in Libby, Montana can get Medicare because of an airborne illness like asbestos, but you got everybody in America wearing masks and walking around because of an airborne virus named COVID-19, why don't we have Medicare for all because of that? Why don't we have Medicare for all because of that? How come the veterans that got Legionnaire's disease, which again is an airborne illness, how come they didn't get Medicare for all? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe they did. I'm not sure. But I don't remember hearing anything about that. Again, I'm in North Carolina. I plan on calling my 2 state senators as much as humanly possible to convince them to say, hey, you know what? No, we need actual relief. We need you all to just remix the CARES Act and put that back. Put the CARES Act back in effect. Put it back in effect. Change the expiration date on it. Give us all our money from back pay. Change the expiration date and keep that going to something like June 30th. Then we'll reassess. We start calling our politicians. And again, we need to go on strike. Shut this whole damn country down. Shut this country down. Top to bottom, left to right. Rion Razmataz saying decriminalization, not legalization. Hey, why not? Why not? Why not? If you watch seasons 3 and seasons 4 of The Wire, which is the greatest television show ever. Former mayor of Baltimore, and this actually really happened in real life, and it actually sort of happened in this show with a bit of an embellishment. But in real life, and this, just so you all understand, if you're running for the Democratic, if you are the winner of a Democratic primary in Baltimore, you're the de facto mayor of Baltimore, because Baltimore will never vote a Republican into City Hall. No Republicans ever sitting in City Hall on Holiday Street in Baltimore. It's never happening. It's not happening anytime soon. So if you were the Democratic primary, you're going to be mayor of Baltimore. So this is probably going back about 30 years now. You had an incumbent mayor named Kurt Schmoke. Kurt Schmoke, born, raised in Baltimore, grew up in Baltimore, high school football player and lacrosse player, and quite a good lacrosse player, I might add. People of Baltimore loved Kurt Schmoke. White guy named Martin O'Malley, former city council president, didn't care about Baltimore at all. He had aspirations of becoming, quite honestly, governor of Maryland and an outside conversation of becoming president of the United States. He didn't give two shits about Baltimore. Kurt Schmoke went ahead in a debate and said, hey, you know what? We should legalize drugs. We should legalize drugs. And from a criminological standpoint, it made perfect sense to do so. From legalizing drugs, you would decriminalize the activity involved with drugs, build more tax revenue, and you can actually do some things in Baltimore, like fix up the West Side and put a couple of grocery stores in that area, or put a couple of banks in the area, preferably public banks, or some credit unions. Because most of the West Side of Baltimore is a food desert and a banking desert. I guarantee you, money from the sale of drugs, decriminalized drugs, would have gone a long way to helping the people on the West Side of Baltimore. Or some of that money could have gone into fixing some of the crumbling infrastructure in Baltimore. Martin O'Malley gets on TV and says, hey, Baltimore, do you really want to have legalized drugs with all the murders going on these streets? And stupidly, people voted for Martin O'Malley. Look in Portugal. Portugal has decriminalized drugs. They seem to be doing okay. Go walk around Amsterdam. Wish I was there right now. Go walk around Amsterdam. They've legalized. They seem to be doing just fine. But it's only this country that goes ahead and decides to say, hey, you know what, let's have these, according to the DEA, let's have 5 different schedules for drugs and then make marijuana a Schedule 1 drug, when it's not nearly as harmful as the other Schedule 1 drugs on the list. I had to know the 5 schedules of the drugs years ago for one of the internships that I had. I don't remember all of them, but quite honestly, again, this is something Joe Biden could do on day one. Joe Biden could go ahead and reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 or 4 or 5 drug. And at that point, when you make it a Schedule 5 drug, it's you're essentially buying aspirin at that point. It's like buying aspirin over the counter. You could do that. When we talk about all of this, all of the hospital issues in healthcare, when you talk about the hospitalizations in healthcare, what's going to happen when everybody has to go ahead and get these vaccines? Vaccines. There's talk now these vaccines are 95% effective. 95% effective. 95% effective. Let's say you got to vaccinate everybody in the world. All right? So you're talking 8 billion people. All right? I'm not a mathlete when it comes to these big numbers, but I'm going to go ahead and 8 billion. 0.05. Okay? So 5% of 8 billion people is 400 million people. So again, these vaccines are 95% effective. So 5% of the entire global population, assuming the global population is 8 billion people, thereabouts, is approximately 400 million people. 400 million people. $400 million people is essentially US, England, Germany's populations added together. 400 million people. You want to take that chance of taking a vaccine that could potentially not work on 400 million people? You want to roll the dice with that? Okay. Have at it. Jackson saying the privatization of the prison system in this industry is massively disgusting, misused, and overly abused. I thoroughly agree. And again, one of my favorite quote unquote props that I've been using ever since I've been doing these Live and Direct chats is the 13th Amendment of the United States. And of course I have it here because I'm a prepared brother. 13th Amendment of the United States saying neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Now again, that specific clause where it says except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. You see that clause there? That clause is the foundation of the prison, the private prison industry, except as punishment for a crime. So if you go ahead and say, hey, you know what? You're selling drugs. Okay. Oh, you're convicted of a crime. Okay. Now we can go ahead and essentially banish you to slave labor. And if you think I'm bullshitting, take a look at what happened in California when our Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was Attorney General. But then before that, when she was state's attorney for San Francisco, when she locked up a whole lot of black and brown people for a lot longer than their prison sentences were allowed. Then when it was time, when these California wildfires took place, she said, hey, you know what? Hey, you see you over there? You convicted of selling weed? We're going to train you because you're nonviolent. We'll train you. And we're going to have you fight fires. Hey, firefighters make $80,000 a year when they're trained. What am I going to get paid? $1.45 per day. And you get outdoor time. Take it or leave it. Okay, I guess I'll take it. Vice President of the United States did that. Not the current one, the next one, Kamala Harris. And you know who set the table for that? The President-elect of the United States, Joe Biden. He said, you're selling crack? Mandatory minimum sentence. because Joe Biden wrote the crack bill, the crack law. Then Joe Biden, a few years later, say, hey, you know what? We got to get all these violent thugs off the streets. We need more money for police, and we need more prisons being built. Okay, let's write the omnibus crime bill. I want to make sure everybody understands what the word omnibus actually means. Okay, when you talk about an omnibus crime bill, or what is currently being negotiated right now with the omnibus budget bill, which supposedly is what the stimulus bill or the relief package is going to be attached to sometime soon. Omnibus, when they mean an omnibus bill, they mean a bunch of different bills put together. I mean, a bunch of different bills put together. So when the omnibus crime bill was written, you had a bill just for militarizing the police and giving them more money to expand their militarization. You had another bill that said, hey, you know what? We're going to put more money out there for prisons and jails and juvenile detention centers. We're going to have another bill that's going to say, hey, yeah, we're going to give more military-style weapons to the police. We're going to have another bill that says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and increase surveillance so that we can lock up more people. Again, a bunch of different bills put together into one bill. That is what they mean when it's meant as an omnibus bill. It's all-encompassing. Over this past weekend, we honored the losses, the deaths, the passings of Fred Hampton and Madiba, Nelson Mandela. Fred Hampton was the leader of the Chicago Black Panthers. He was also the creator of the Rainbow Coalition. The Rainbow Coalition was a multi-ethnic, multiracial group of workers, of laborers. They were fighting for rights. Nelson Mandela, we know everything that he did. The man spent 27 years of the best years of his life in a jail, fighting apartheid. The obvious and common thread between both of them is their leadership. The obvious and common thread between both of them is their love of the people and willingness to serve the people and to save the people. And I don't know if we live in a society right now where I don't know if it is possible to create another Fred Hampton or another Nelson Mandela. I don't know if there is a savior that will help save us. Now more than ever, we must save ourselves. We must be the help we're waiting for. When you see all these older white business owners complaining, hey, I want to open my business. I want to open my business. How come I can't open my bar up, but Amazon gets to have package delivery all the time? How come my neighborhood grocery store has to shut down, but the Whole Foods 2 blocks away gets to stay open? How come my barbershop has to shut down? and then you don't help these small businesses out. The more you keep economically screwing people over, that is how you ended up with what we've had in the White House for the past 4 years. That's how you get a Donald Trump. That's how you get a Donald Trump. And again, in 2 years, if I'm still doing these videos, or if I'm still living in the United States, who knows? And when the midterm elections come around, and Democrats in the House are completely obliterated because of what they're doing to the American people now, don't come crying to me, please. I don't want to hear it. And when people 2 years from now start talking, man, you know what? We really should go on strike. Okay, what leverage do you have? What leverage do you have? Because the Senate's going to stay Republican. I'll stay Republican 2 years from now, most likely. What leverage are you going to have 2 years from now when all these business owners that were looking for some sort of help from Nancy Pelosi and they're getting screwed by Nancy Pelosi, all because she didn't want to make it look like she was helping Trump? What's going to happen in 2 years when the House becomes Republican? In 2022. And by then we might be coming out of might be beginning to see some sort of light at the end of the tunnel of this pandemic in 2022. Around this time, 2 years from now. When you have a Republican House and a Republican Senate. And you have 4 years of anti-establishment on both sides of the aisle, continuing to build up their anger and frustration towards a government that turned its back on its people. This could go one of two ways. You either get a populist leader, a populist left-leaning leader like a Bernie Sanders, but unlike Bernie Sanders, someone that will actually do what they say they're going to do and use the movement of the people to actually help the people from a governmental perspective. Or it could go the exact opposite way. And you end up with a competent fascist. You end up with a worse version of Trump. You end up with a Trump-like character that actually knows how government works. You end up with a Tom Cotton or a Mike Pence. And I guarantee you, if Ted Cruz wasn't born in Canada, he would run for president. And mark my words, I'm going to say this right now. Again, I watch more than my share of international news, and there's a lot of elections taking place across the world. A lot of them. I think Venezuela just had their elections recently. Ghana is having their elections, I think now, if I'm not mistaken. Uganda is having their elections. Israel, I think, is having another set of elections, their fourth time in the past 2 years. And I think France is going to have elections sometime next year. I'll be willing to bet you that Emmanuel Macron doesn't get reelected in France. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And I guarantee you there's going to be a whole lot more support for Marine Le Pen next in 2021 than there was a few years ago in the previous French election. I guarantee you. I just hope the French people have enough common sense to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we had 4 years of Macron. Macron was terrible, but we're not going with the fascist and Le Pen. Let's push this country left. For all my brothers and sisters in Canada, when Trudeau gets up for re-election, don't let Canada's racism get in the way of electing Jagmeet Singh as your president. Just because he's a person of color, wears a head covering, and practices a different religion doesn't mean he's not for the people. Don't let your racism get in the way. Again, I didn't live in Canada during the Harper decade, but I know he was terrible. But Trudeau isn't that much better. I think I've said all I wanted to say for today. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. I want to thank everybody that participated in the chats. I appreciate all of you as always. And just like I said on my Instagram stories earlier today on my morning walk, I said, I come in peace and I come in love. But sometimes love comes in the form of difficult and uncomfortable conversations. Peace.